We are back with another episode of C2C. In this episode, I want to talk about all about teams, how you can manage your teams well, what makes a good team successful, what hinders teams, so that way you can start improving the way that your teams are operating inside of your health coaching business. And I want to make this episode based off of the past conversations that I had over the span of the last couple of weeks. Teams can be really, really finicky inside of a business. And this isn't just a health business. This could be any business in general. You get a lot of people now, especially going into the year 2026, where you have sort of two different groups and work mentalities. You have kind of like old school work mentality, push harder, everything has to be done my way. If it's not 100%, it's 0%. And then you have the type of people who are kind of transitioning through the workforce now, which is like lack of loyalty, everything's very transient, there's high level of stress, you just want to do the bare minimum. And oftentimes, when I go in and I'm looking at a business and their teams, it's interesting because you find a combination of both of those people. And often, when I'm speaking to business owners, they're saying to themselves, my team's not committed. I can't get them to work the same way that I do. I don't know why they're not producing the same results. I feel like I have to tell them the same thing over and over again. And even though you put all of the processes together, stuff is still kind of clunky. And this is where the whole conversation comes up into how do we have a better team? How do we design process and a system where regardless of what type of people you are getting inside of your business, it is still going to run smoothly? Because that's ultimately the objective, regardless of who you put in that role, they should be able to have the tools, the resources, and the knowledge to fulfill that role, regardless of who they are, or what their personality is. So let's go into client conversation with this. So I have a client who has successfully hired three people in a row. So a couple of things happened. They lost a coach. They had a person transition into another job. There was another person who was already actively exiting and they were finding a replacement for them. And all these things tend to happen at once. Normally, when you have a transition of people, it could be something that's very fluid because there's some type of fluid roles. Or it could be something where maybe you have a really good person over a couple of years, and then it's like, bam, that person says, hey, look, I'm going somewhere else. This is something that can devastate a lot of business owners, but it didn't devastate the client that I was working with because he had a plan. He had all his SOPs together. We had the trainings already recorded and filled out. My team helps do onboarding in terms of a lot of their people that come in. So they're very confident in that they have the tools and the systems to bring somebody in and then launch them off. But the conversation was like, well, like, how come all these people are being very transient? And this is where the communication comes with like what you can actually expect from an employee. Most employees are not going to operate at the same level of the business owner. You, as the business owner, care 110% about your business. And the majority of people that you're going to hire are maybe going to care 60 to 65%. Remember, they're there for a paycheck. They're not there to generate large, massive amounts of income. And it's very rare where you can find someone that has the same alignment and the same drive as you, the business owner. This is why we have standard operating procedures. This is why we have minimals on our deliverables. So not minimals on our deliverables. Holy cow. Which could be like, this is how many sales you need. This is how many calls you need to make. This is how many appointments you need to book. These things exist so that way we have a base benchmark for everybody to be able to fall under. Of course, you want to train your team to be able to go over those minimals. But that being said, if they don't, that is the standard. You have to have a standard. You cannot move or deviate the standard for anybody because then the operating procedures don't work. And here's what I find makes teams the most unsuccessful. Most people don't have operating procedures on paper, they have them in their head. So you as the business owner are always showing people individually. And although you think you're showing them the same way, every single time you go and you bring someone on, it's a little bit different. The way you say it's different, the way you do it is different. You're making changes on the fly. And although you think it's easier for you to train everybody one by one, you find out very quickly when you've got a team of 12, 16, 18, you're like, holy cow, I can't keep training everybody one on one because my time is valuable. Every time I'm spent training this one person on a role like admin or front desk or some type of an assistant or maybe an assistant coach, that's time that you're losing marketing, sales, you're getting people onboarded, and that's really where the money is made. So most of you have the operating procedure in your head and you think to yourself, okay, I'm bringing this person on the same way every time, but you're not because you're skipping steps. You've changed the process a little bit. You've tweaked it. You communicate it in the way you understand. And that's why an operating procedure exists. It exists so everyone follows the identical process the same way every time. The second thing is when you bring somebody on, you don't do the work to properly vet them to make sure that culturally and identity wise, they are a good fit. There are so many people inside of the industry of health specifically that do not have the alignment of its client results first. And all they're focused on is, I'm just here for a job. I can tell you it doesn't matter whether they're front desk, whether they're back end assisting maybe a main physio or they're another coach. If they are not prepared to put client first, it's client first, team second, revenue third. If they're not prepared for that, then you cannot onboard them and you can't take them on. So many teams fall apart because initially they agree to everything, but their identity and their alignment's not on board. And then when you start putting the client first, when you start challenging them on results, they say, this is no longer right for me. And then they go somewhere else. People are typically focused on two things. They're focused on the amount of money that they can make, and they're focused on job difficulty. So up front, if someone is looking to make money, they'll say that they're willing to do anything, but 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. You have to be okay with that. And I can tell you there's a screening process that I've done with my team and that we do with other team members that like any of our clients need. There's a screening process that you can go through that can weed and sift through the culture change, the identity shift that is needed for that person. Ultimately, what we want to do is we want to build an application and a vetting process that forces them to be self-led, highly driven, motivated to show up, and someone who cares about the clients first. We can have them create training programs as examples. We can have them send client testimonials. We can have them create a piece of content and say, how would you deliver value to our client who is struggling with X, Y, and Z problem? And when you do this prior to bringing them on, what you're seeing is someone's ability to adapt, someone's ability to just take your recommendations or your ask as is, or that person who might go above and beyond. And this is where you really get to flush people out and see what the quality of their work is. If I ask for 2 videos, am I going to get 2 15-second videos? Am I going to get 2 15-minute videos from the person? That's going to be a totally different person in terms of self-led, their drive, what they're willing to do. And ultimately, I'm not expecting these things to be perfect, especially from someone who doesn't work for me. What I'm expecting in that moment is that the person is self-led enough to lead with my instructions and try. If they're willing to try on their own, then I know that they're going to be open and willing and coachable to work under me. And that is what I have found creates the most successful teams. It's culture, it's identity, and it's standard operating procedures. When it comes to culture, you have to know the values inside of your company. What is it that you value? What are the results that you want to get to clients? How do you want the client's experience to operate? How do you want your team's culture to operate? Is it a family vibe? Is this going to be coworkers that are just kind of connected together by like the need to fulfill a client avenue? What specifically is driving that culture? A lot of health coaches will create culture inside of communities for their clients where they know how to get a bunch of clients together and all vote for each other and get excited and show up to group calls. But then when it comes to creating culture in their team, it's kind of like an afterthought. You have to run your team the same way that you would run a group coaching call or the way that you would run a client event. Everyone has to get along. There has to be a key theme. There has to be a through note. And they have to have an understanding as to why they're there. When people can connect with why they're there, that's when they're going to start doing things outside of their job description. They're going to start going above and beyond because they actually want to be there and do these things. The second piece that makes a good team is identity. This is identity of them as an individual. It's really important that you invest in someone's growth because when someone sees that they can grow with you, they're going to stay. People stay for two reasons and they leave for two reasons. They stay for growth and they stay for income, or they leave for lack of growth and they leave for lack of income. Now, inside of a health coaching business, you can't always continue to grow their income. You're not going to have a coach that makes more than 40 an hour. Even if you bring on another practitioner like a naturopath, a dietitian, you're not going to charge more than 200 for them an hour. So there is going to be a cap in terms of their income. But there isn't a cap in regards to their growth. You can invest in them taking different courses. You can ask them to create or be co-owners or authors inside of different programs under your company. You can have them be a part of creating the SOPs so that involvement keeps them engaged. Even if someone's income doesn't increase, if they're involved in the process of delivering to your clients and creating new things, and they're getting ongoing education and they're learning more, they're getting growth. And as long as they're growing as a person, they're going to be invested in you as the business owner. Never be afraid to invest in somebody. There are so many business owners I speak to, and this is even outside of the health industry, which is like, I'm not going to train them because they're just going to leave. Train them so well that they have all of the skills to leave, but they don't want to because the culture makes them stay. There are so many companies that we work with where their team meeting every single Monday, it's filled with excitement, it's filled with joy. People see each other's family, they know their kids' names. And when you do little things like that and you're showing up in little levels, it really makes this vibe where someone goes, if I'm going to leave this, I really have to take a second look. I have to say, why am I leaving this? What's wrong with here now that I'm going to go search somewhere else because what I have here is really great. And if you don't have those things, then of course people are going to leave for growth opportunities and they're going to leave for money. If there's no reason for them to stay, why would they? So identity is all about how you build them as an individual person. So this is when it comes to hiring coaches, can you invest in their education so they can become better coaches? Can you have them create programs? When it comes to front desk staff, can they be a part of the SOPs? Can you have them start to do maybe some of the sales conversations or even do pre-qualification? Can you give them education and training so maybe they can learn more about how your coaches or how your practitioners operate? Can you have them participate in the master classes or the seminars? Can you have them lead any of the team events? Maybe they're responsible to put on the next Christmas party or the next event that you have for your clients. All of these are responsibilities that you can pass to someone else, which is an investment in their identity. Only once you have culture and identity do you then focus on your operating procedures. And that's so weird to me because that's where everybody goes first. They have a bad hire and they're like, oh, it's because of my processing sheets and all this stuff. No, 9 times out of 10, it's culture and identity fit. It's not operating procedures. For you to have good operating procedures, you have to be marking down step by step how you want the process done and the way that it's going to benefit the client the most. You should have operating procedures for front desk, how to book appointments, how to take conversations or objections, how to answer questions, what to do in terms of payroll, bookkeeping if you haven't outsourced that. When it comes to sales, you should have an SOP for how to pre-qualify. You should have an SOP for following up with leads. You should have an SOP for how to actually handle the sales, who handles the sales. And that needs to be a streamlined Word document as well as there needs to be videos. You also need an SOP for anything regarding client delivery. How do you onboard a client? What do you do if a client has challenges? How do you deliver to a client? What are the steps and processes for the programs? How do you upsell a client? What do you do to renew a client afterwards? All of these things are things that live in your head as the business owner, but they have to be down word for word out of your mind. You want an SOP that if someone is brand new to the company, aka if I walk in and I go, hey, I'm here to do pre-qualification for your company, you should be able to hand me something, say, watch 4 or 5 of these videos. I want you to read this and practice the script. You and I are going to sit down on a call to practice the script further, and then you'll be good to go. These are the types of roles that should be onboarded within less than a week. It shouldn't take you 3 or 4 months to train, especially with something like coaching or something like admin. Anyone who's going to be an assistant coach or someone on the floor, they should already have the experience and know what to do. This is very evident in your pre-qualification process of this person. When you are taking the applications, 90% of all of the challenges inside of Teams is how you filter the application. Are you looking at the qualifications? Are you following up on the references? Are you having them do those tasks that I talked about at the beginning of the video to actually test their knowledge? Are you seeing what their identity and their culture fit is going to be like inside of your crew? Only once you have them do all of that do you then walk through the SOP with them. And when it comes to the SOP, it has to be the exact verbatim of what needs to be done. You need to show them the shortcuts. You need to show them the long way. You need to show them why it's important to them. You also need to show where and when, where it needs to be done, where it needs to be inputted, when it needs to be done, because people will have questions. And there's different styles of learning. I'm a big believer that you want to catch people in both areas, both visual, audio, and then you also want to be able to have some type of a written form. So people can go through it in writing, listen to it visually, or watch it visually, listen to it audibly, and then they're getting all 3 pieces. If someone matches culture, identity, and they've fully trained and watched the SOP, there's no reason as to why that person is not going to be a good fit in your company and why they're not going to work. These are the people that stay the longest. These are the people that are going to be open to growth. And these are going to be the people that follow the process. Now, with every single one of these things, you have to be consistent. When it comes to culture, you have to communicate your values every meeting, every month, and every opportunity you can. If someone is not in alignment with the values, you have to correct it as soon as possible and say, that's not what we believe in here. That's not what we do here, because it's always about getting them in alignment. Alignment happens in small 1 degree increments. Slower over time, a person will grow out of alignment if you don't correct them on the values. When it comes to identity, it's the same thing. You have to be encouraging growth. You have to be telling them to do things that are uncomfortable. You have to be praising them for doing things that are inside their job. And then you have to praise them for doing things that are outside of their job. This helps showcase to people, because unlike you as the business owner, most business owners are like, well, I don't get any praise, so I'm not going to go and thank someone for doing the job that I hired them to do. No, you absolutely should, because this is a part of their identity shift. When someone gets praised for doing good and doing well, then that person is more likely to repeat that process again. And then when it comes to the operating procedure, you don't deviate. If someone finds a shortcut or someone finds a way that's better, you have to update the SOP. Most operating procedures are usually outdated by a year and a half. If I talk to the business owner compared to I talk to the person in the role, they're doing it 2 totally different ways, because the business owner is adjusting, and then they're not communicating the change or writing it down properly. I like to operate with my team in a way where I have a living operating procedure. Everyone has the ability to edit it. If they edit it, they tag us in emails and say, hey, I've changed this and here's why I've changed it. We all approve the change joint together, me and them. And then that way people know the updates and they see what's going on. So they know to look at the documents that change. So if sales for some reason starts slowing down and it's like, oh, there's a better way to pre-qual, absolutely adjust it and then communicate that with everyone. Or if client delivery, a client isn't seeing as much results and you're saying to yourself, wow, we could really change some of the modules in the program so they can see better results, you have to update that as well. Bottom line is your team is your responsibility. They are going to be the lifeblood in your business, and they're going to be the thing that helps take you out of the business. If you're still working inside of your business and you're the type of person who's having a hard time trusting their team, I can tell you it's not a team problem, it's a you problem. You have to work on letting go. As the business owner, one of the hardest things for you to do is transition from the role of practitioner to the role of business owner. I can tell you no practitioner effectively does both. It's very difficult. They're either a very good practitioner, mediocre business owner, or they're a phenomenal business owner and their practitioner stuff is falling off. You have to decide at one point when you're gonna transition. And when you do that transition, you have to fully transition and delegate. The aspect of delegating to other people, it's not weakness. This is your ability to take your time and your capacity back. Be okay with someone making mistakes. Be okay with someone doing 65% of the job. Let's make sure that you've set up the standards and the operating procedures to the result not falling below a certain minimum. Because when you do that, that's when you get to protect the clients, you get to protect your sales, and you can scale with a team. If you want to go fast, that means you're going to have to go alone. If you want to go far in business, this is where you have to rely on others and you have to rely on your team. So whenever we go and we look at the teams, we have to look at these three things and we have to take a step back, which means slowing down a little bit. The only way these changes happen inside of your team structure is you have to take the time to speak with every teammate. You have to look at the results that they're outputting. You have to look at whether or not they're still connected. And then you have to look at how old are my SOPs. And I can tell you, when I step into a lot of the businesses, most people, when it comes to getting more sales and getting new clients, they don't realize that they're leaving like an extra 10, 12% on the table of potential clients just by cleaning up their processes. Their leads are falling through the cracks. The lead follow-up's not consistent. Their sales conversions aren't really that great because no one's following the sales playbook. Their client results in decent, but could be better because all of the coaches or all the practitioners are doing things differently. All of that can be cleaned up and tweaked. So you keep your clients longer, you're selling more people, and you're pre-qualifying more people. That's going to guarantee more sales, that's going to guarantee more income, and that's going to continue to grow your business. So take that with what you will, and you can go and focus on your team. And as always, if you need help growing your team or growing your sales or growing your business, that's exactly what the C2C program is for. I tell you guys this all the time. We have spots open for C2C, but going into February and March, I can't believe it's the last week of January already. Going into February and March, you are still riding the wave of momentum from October, November, December. February is where you're really going to test your systems and see where things break down. This is the perfect opportunity for you to join the C2C program. We've got 3 spots open for February 1 to start. That's literally in a couple of days from this episode. Not miss the opportunity to join C2C. And for you to do that, just DM me the word C2C on Instagram, or you can reach out to me on Facebook in the DMs, and then we can set up a conversation. Thanks, guys, for watching this episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.